In 2010, Ann and I took a trip to Iraq for a humanitarian aid trip. And it turned out to be absolutely wonderful. Ann is an amazing person. And we went over there and we took things over for the children and for the women of Iraq. A lot of people were taking like books and things like that for the children. I have a sister who makes quilts and took over baby blankets for the women who would have a baby and had nothing for their babies. And took over eyeglasses. People don't think about it, but a lot of the Iraqi women don't have the means to get out and sell things, but they work at home and they'll be sewing, and if they're having problems with their eyesight, they can't see to thread the needle or to be able to do it, to be able to make money for their families. So I took over like 250 pairs of eyeglasses and then earrings, which sounds crazy, but every woman wants to be beautiful. Every woman, every young girl wants to feel pretty. And my baby sister made earrings, and so I took over 200 pairs of earrings over to Iraq and distributed them among the women. And one lady sit there, and she had been wearing black for over 10 years. Her son was killed by Saddam Hussein's troops. He was dragged out and killed right in front of her. And she had worn nothing but black for 10 years. She couldn't speak English, but her daughter could. And she got a pair of earrings. They were baby blue. And she put those earrings on, and she was so happy and so proud of those earrings. And her daughter told me thank you. It was the first thing of color that she had put on in 10 years. We sit there, when we went over there, we took crates of supplies for the women and the children of Iraq. And there was a day that we went out and they separated all the stuff they had brought in these crates to distribute among the women. And that was an absolutely wonderful day. It was just amazing. And through this all, we would tell stories about our children that we had lost in the war. And toward the end of the week, because we were there for a solid week in Iraq, we went to this lake up in the mountains, and we had a memorial service for our children. And Ann got up and she read a poem for Kimberly, and it was beautiful. And then right at the very end, there was a lot of people getting up and saying stuff, and some just talked and some read the poems and all that. And at the very, very end, I got up and I sang my son, Amazing Grace. He would always hum Amazing Grace when he was in a battle, because he had heard me sing it thousands of times when he was a child and growing up, and he loved that song. So I sang Amazing Grace for my baby, and that's how we ended the memorial service. And it was just beautiful, and it was peaceful. And when we came back, we flew into New York, and some of the mothers were from Utah. And so we were separating there at the airport in New York. And so we all gathered together and stood in a circle. And in the middle of the New York airport, I think it's JFK, we all sang Amazing Grace together. Mm-hmm. And it was beautiful, and it was wonderful. And I'm so glad that I was blessed enough to be able to do that with Ann and with the other mothers. Ann has been a very special friend to me. I just absolutely adore her. I always call Ann the lady. She's such a lady, so sweet. And she's helped me a lot, talking to me about different things. And the fact that people honored Kimberly today is just amazing. I am so happy for her and Dale. And it's just been an absolutely wonderful day. So, sorry. And also a terrorist. And I didn't know about this. I did not know about this for the longest time. And someone just told me one day, a terrorist had a car bomb and tried to drive into the hotel. And they shot him and killed him. But I didn't know that. I really seriously did not know that. And we had a bodyguard, and he was, I think, a Navy SEAL. His name was Douglas. Love Doug. I call Doug my big teddy bear. I mean, he was like 6'4", and he was massive. And Doug was just the best. And he had one of his.
Did you feel scared over there? I mean, were y'all uneasy while you were there, or?
I was never scared, never. And this is what I told people before I left, because I had my family. My husband was so freaked out. He really didn't want me to go, but he was not going to tell me I could not go. And I had some women at church one day sit there and say, well, aren't you scared? I said, why should I be scared? I said, if I go over there and I come home, I'll be with my loved ones here. If I go over there and God ordains that something's going to happen, I get to go home and be with Jim in heaven. Where's the downside to either one of these scenarios? There's no downside. I said, I am perfectly at peace. I am not scared. I am fine with going to Iraq. And the women in the church just looked totally shocked. They had not thought of it that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I was just like, there's nothing to be scared about. God is in control. And it cost us all $5,000 apiece to be able to go to Iraq. Well, I'm not rich. I'm not rich at all. And so I'm like, how am I going to raise this $5,000? I mean,
I'm just loving
just freaked out about how I was going to raise this $5,000. And we sit there and we were friends with the Marine Corps League because Jim was a Marine. And he was a Marine for a year and 12 days when he was killed. And so we sit there, and I kept trying to figure out how I could raise this $5,000. Very freaked out about it. And a friend of ours with the Marine Corps League, he was a commandant, he calls me up, he says, well, you know what, the Marine Corps League of South Carolina is going to give you $2,000. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was crying. I was just like, I'm so blessed, thank you so much. And so the day that I went up for them to present me with the check, because it was a big deal. And so the day that I went to go get the check, they said, well, we talked about it, and we just decided we're going to give you the whole $5,000. So the Marine Corps League of South Carolina paid for my entire trip to Iraq. And I sit up there and just cry. And I was just like, thank you, Lord. Just thank you, Lord. So I knew that it was ordained that I was to go to Iraq. And so I just trusted that God would take care of everything. And I just left it in His hands. I try to never second guess what God says, because He knows what's best, and there's always a reason for everything. And I've told people for years, good things happen and bad things happen. You can make the bad things better, or you can make them worse. And it all depends on how you react to them. And I choose to try to make them better. Now, do I always succeed? No, nobody always succeeds. But I'm going to do my best to try to make it better. And so that's just how I've lived my life.
What were y'all able to do?
We went to the Children's Hospital. So I was able to deliver the baby blankets. I had put them in one of those shrink bags to make up as little room in my suitcase as possible. So So we went to the hospital. We also went to a women and children's center.
So were they like, I mean, when y'all went to these places, I'm sure they were grateful y'all were there.
Oh yes, and we got fed everywhere we went.
Oh my gosh.
But you sat on the floor.
Yeah.
At some places, not at every place. But it's the Women and Children's Center. We sat on the floor and ate, and but they had wonderful food. Oh my goodness, they had just absolutely amazing food, and after each meal you would drink this hot tea, and it was very sweet and it was very hot, and oh, it was wonderful. And I actually brought home a glass tea set like what they use over in Iraq. I brought one home, and oh my goodness, I was so protective of my, because I put it in my carry-on because I didn't want it to get broke, and I was so protective of that carry-on because I was afraid it would get broke on the way home.
Don't break my tea set.
Yeah, don't break my tea set. And we sit there and went and watched the Peshmerga, the Kurdish army, training. And so we were out there, and they had a big, huge thing, and they were all training, and they were shooting off fire and bombs and all this, and not big bombs,
Yeah.
but and the Kurdish troops were running through showing how they trained the troops, and it was very impressive. It was beautiful. And afterwards, they served us this big banquet, big, huge banquet, and it was absolutely amazing. And after it was all over with, the troops, who only got meat like once a week, got to eat all the leftovers from the banquet. So they were thrilled that we were there, because it was a feast for them too, because normally they only got meat once a week. And so they were thrilled because they got all this food. We also went to the palace of the Iraqi president and his wife. Now, he was not there. He was in another country that week. But his wife was there, and his daughter. And my husband, who at the time we thought had Native American in him, because he'd always been told that. We have since found out he does not.
He doesn't.
No. But we did find out he's 1% Jewish, so that made me very happy. I took over. Do you know what a painted pony is? It's a porcelain horse statue, and they're beautiful, and they have different designs and all this. Anyway, I had taken a painted pony over there. That was the thing that went over there in my carry-on that I was guarding. And the horse was rearing, and down one side was a Native American man, and on the other side was a Native American woman, down each side of the horse. And it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And so I presented that to the wife of the Iraqi president, and their daughter absolutely loved it. So their daughter ended up with that painted pony that became hers and everything. So we had a feast there, and one of the Gold Star mothers with us from Utah, named Colleen Parkin, and she is a trip. She always wore pink combat boots, because life is always better in pink boots. And it just so happened it was her birthday when we went to the palace, and she has a twin sister, and this was the first birthday she was ever spending not with her sister. And so she was like, it was very upsetting for her, because she's always celebrated her birthday with her sister. So the Iraqi president's wife sit there, and for one thing, she had us all outfits made. We made these beautiful, absolutely beautiful outfits, and but she had like 2 or 3 pink cakes made. You know, they had pink icing on them for Colleen's birthday. And so we're sitting there in the Iraqi palace, and we're all singing happy birthday to Colleen. and she got to cut the cake and all this. So even though she was sad she wasn't with her sister, she had a birthday that she will never forget. And we just had an amazing time. But it was just so awesome that we could celebrate her birthday and stuff. So it was very, very amazing. And we were going to go to an orphanage, but that was toward the end of the week, and the Al-Qaeda was already chattering, so we ended up not getting to go. We ran out of time. Did not get to go to the orphanage. And but we did go to a market one day, and I had been sick. I had gotten food poisoning. We had went to a restaurant, and me and another lady that was on the trip, we both got food poisoning. So I missed when we were separating the stuff in the crates and packing them up. I missed that because I was in bed at the hotel. But when they came back, we went to the Iraqi market, and I got up and I was white as a sheet. And I went to the Iraqi market. I'd already missed that morning's activities, and I'm like, I'm not missing anything else. So we went to the market, and that's where we bought the tea sets and all that, and I bought some other stuff, and bought some Saddam Hussein money, which I still have with his picture on it. Yeah, it was amazing what you could buy at the market. So, but yeah, we bought a lot of different things and stuff. So, but it was just absolutely amazing, and it was a wonderful trip, and in ways it was a very sobering trip because, for one thing, you knew it was dangerous, but you also knew how much they needed help. And these women were trying so hard to rebuild their children's lives and their own lives, and be able to get through everything. So it was very, very hard on them. So, but Anne, as always, was always smiling and encouraging, and she's just amazing. I just love Anne.
And she's actually been 3 times.
Yes, she went a few more times, and I wished I could have went with her, but there was no way. I was blessed to have went the first time, so I counted my blessings for that, and I just left it there.
Yeah.
So I figure, that everyone has a different path. So, like I said, I was blessed to be able to go that first time. So I was happy with that. So.